This is the March Madness Challenge B edition. And Beth Braun and I are going to be introducing ourselves in a little bit, and she's helping me host this call. It is good to have your catalog handy. Let's see. Jamie Riggs told me last year that she always writes whenever there's any of these walkthroughs, she pulls out her catalog and takes notes right in the catalog so that when second semester comes along and she's like, oh, what do I do for mock trial? I forget. Or what are the resources I need? Or what did she say about this? Like to keep this in mind. She just goes right back to her catalog and she has it all like written in there. And then she saves that she just saves her catalogs each year and then she can look at her notes in there to give her tips with her other kids. So I've started doing that and I think it's a great way to organize our notes and all that. I keep letting Kim in and she keeps getting kicked back out. Kim, are you okay? I feel like you keep coming in and out. Hopefully everything's working all right. All right.
I was having a lot of technical difficulties,
Oh,
so
okay.
I think I figured it out. I have a new phone, so I was just having some issues.
I just want
Okay,
to know what's on my end because sometimes
yes,
I push the wrong button and kick people out instead of letting them in, and that's always
yeah,
annoying.
it
So
was on my end, but I think I figured it out. Thanks.
cool, good. So Kim is going to be a Challenge B director next year, so I'm excited that she's on this call. So okay, we're gonna if you could, we're not going to do the full introductions because we do have a number of us on the call here. So if you could just go ahead and type in the chat the number of years you've been homeschooling, how long you've been in CC, or if you're brand new to CC, because I've had a lot of new people on these calls. What location you're in, whether you're from Lexington or Owensboro, like your local community, and then what brings you on the call today. Like if you're going to be a director, that's really useful for us to know. If you're actually not a CC person yet and you just want to know what CC does, it'll be valuable for us to know as well. That way we can tailor our conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself first. My name is Krista Bottomley, and you should be typing in the chat right now while I go through this. My name is Krista Bottomley. I am the Kentucky book rep. I cover the whole state of Kentucky, both all the way out to the West Virginia border and then over to the Missouri border. So, and then before that, I was the book rep in Pennsylvania and up and down the East Coast. So I really like book repping. Let's see, I cheat on the numbers because I don't like to do all the math. And I say I've been homeschooling my daughter since birth, right? Because that's when God gave her to me to teach. And so she's 23. So I just say, I've been homeschooling 23 years. Or if I happen to be good at math that day, I say, oh, I've been homeschooling 18 years if you count kindergarten on. And we did not start with CC. We started with the Well-Trained Mind. And that was a very overwhelming prospect. And I was doing it all on my own. I did not have community. It was just me. And I knew a couple homeschoolers through church, but we never got together and it was just me alone. So we found CC when she was about 9 years old and I just fell in love with it. The whole classical education made approachable was right. It was exactly what I was looking for. So since then, let's see, I have a challenge for graduate. She's graduated and she's about to graduate college now. She's doing great at a school called St. John's out in Annapolis, Maryland. You might have heard Lee Bortons talk about that school. She's doing excellent out there. But then I also have a Challenge B student. We're just wrapping up Challenge B this year, right now. And then I have a Challenge A student who will be going into B next year. And then I have my youngest student there will be starting Essentials next year. So I have a wide span. I've seen where the program goes. I've seen the results. I've seen it. She's been out of a CC for a few years now, so I'm seeing the long-term results, but I'm also still in the thick of things, teaching a child to read and getting their penmanship right. So it kind of gives me a little perspective. So, and I've been a foundations tutor, an essentials tutor, an F&E director, a Challenge A director, and a Challenge B director myself, although the program's changed a bit since then. But really my sweet spot is being a book rep because I don't necessarily love being the pinnacle of leadership. I rather support those who are in leadership, including moms who are leading their families with their homeschools. So that's me. Beth, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Hello, my name is Beth Braun. I'm the Challenge B director at it's LaGrange, Kentucky, which is north of Louisville, I think. I don't live there. We just go to school there. I've been in CC as long as I've been homeschooling, and my oldest is a Challenge B student, so 10 years maybe. I've also, just like Krista, I've tutored everything. I've directed every program up to B. Um, on our campus, it's a newer, we split off of another campus. And so our Challenge B class is the oldest challenge. So as the community grows, we're the leaders of the challenge programs.
You're the tip of the spear.
Yes. So and then I have my Challenge B student who, yeah, and then I have a Challenge A son, and then I have a second year Essentials Foundations daughter, and I have a first grade Foundation son. So, what else? I think that's,
Yeah,
that's me.
All right. And what's your husband's name? I haven't met
Brandon.
him. Brandon. Okay, good to know. All right, so this is the agenda. We've actually decided to switch things up a little bit from what you see here, and we're going to make it more conversational between Beth and I, as opposed to all the director and then all me. We're going to kind of talk back and forth a little bit. Feels a little more natural to me anyway. But let's see, I don't have a student perspective on this one. My son is just not feeling great, so he's not going to join us for that. But we'll, if you can be, like, if you have questions, it's best for you to type that in the chat and we'll kind of see it as we go, or we'll address them at the end if you want to save them for the end of the call. But I am going to start off, well, first I'm going to pray to help kind of settle Beth in my mind and make sure we're speaking directly to you folks. But we are going to do a classical model refresher. And I'll explain why we're doing that in just a moment. So why don't you join me in prayer for a moment. So Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the technology that makes it so that we can meet across all these miles. I know I personally complain about technology a lot, and sometimes I like my stick in the sand paper and notebooks, but I do see like technology is a blessing when used properly, and just thank you for the ladies that are able to access this and are able to get equipped in this way while they're still in the thick of things, taking care of families, giving people dinner and babies and all that. Lord, just be with Beth and I as we are trying to choose the right words to speak to the audience here. You know the people who are currently on the call and their personal situations and what's going on in their lives around them and what they will be facing in this year coming ahead for Challenge B. But you also know the people who are going to watch this recording, and you know the things that they are concerned about and the equipping that they need. So Lord, I just ask that you would help Beth and I to choose words that are relevant to our audience, and just bless us through this call and bless these moms who are investing their time both in equipping but also in homeschooling their children to your glory. Lord, just thank you for everything you do. We love you, and in Christ's name, amen. Okay, so I am going to, because you're on this call, so I just want to do this because sometimes I forget to do it at the end of the call, or sometimes people have to check off the call early. This coupon code at the very bottom here expires day after tomorrow. So April 1st, on April Fool's Day, this won't work anymore. But if you spend $75, which will also get you free shipping, you can get a free Trivium table or a free flashcard of your choice. Just put it in the cart, apply this to your cart, and it'll just automatically go. But it won't work with remember how you guys get like the $30 off for early registering? Save that for when you do your April sale. So don't, because you can't, it's hard to stack codes. So sales stack with codes, but codes don't stack with other codes. So if you have some things that are not new products, you'll want to use this code for that. That's just a way to strategize. But then the April 7th sale, the new product sale, all the new things will be on sale. So that would be like the Common Latin flashcards, or the the Challenge B Reasoning, both books will be on sale. And then all levels of the math map will be on sale April 7th. So, but then this code won't work at that time. So you need to think strategically. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the classical education model. Some of you are brand new to CC, I see in the chat, so that, and the people watching the recordings might be new to CC, and so I really want to establish a groundwork of why we're doing this weird thing that looks different than what your neighbors who are jumping on a school bus are doing, or at the local public school or the local private school. So I'm going to establish a foundation of why we do what we do, okay? Because that helps. If we know what we're doing and why we're doing it, it helps set the tone for going forward in the future, because nobody's going to stick out the course if it doesn't make sense, right? But additionally, for you moms who are like, I know this, I've heard this 100 times. I see a lot of moms on the call that have been in CC for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Well, that's great. That means that you're more rhetorical, and that means that you need to get your, this is helpful for you getting the verbiage, because that means it's time for you to start telling others about in your community about how this works. So when they're frustrated and they are struggling, this is time for you to be a Titus 2 woman and come alongside and coach them along as they're going through the process. So repetition is good for all of us, and it helps with that layer of understanding that we're going to discuss in a minute. So, but I will try to be quick as I go through this in respecting everyone's time. All right, so modern education, public school down the street or the average public private schooler, this is the model that they're using. The student, or essentially man, is at the center, whether it's the student with what their goals of what do you want to be when you grow up, or it's the parents, what are your goals for your student's education, or the administration concerned about either the reputation of their school or their Common Core objectives or raising a good citizen, something like that. Ultimately, modern education, the man is at the middle of that. And then you see you have these isolated subjects kind of rotating around with man at the center. And these subjects are completely isolated from one another. You have math and you have science and history and maybe, you know, English or something like that. But these subjects never really meet that much. Very seldom do they. Maybe in math and like you'll use some math and science class. But basically the bell rings and the student stops learning history and he moves off to math class. And they don't correlate to one another. They're isolated from one another. Now you get a poor Christian education basically just replicates this exact same model, and except that they add on maybe a Bible study class, you know, Bible class, or maybe you pray before the day starts, maybe you go to chapel, but you still have these isolated subjects that have nothing to do with each other. And you still have man's goals at the center. The students' goals, the parents' goals, the administration's goals are the main objective. And a lot of Christian homeschool curriculum is written this exact same way. I see it all the time. Now, a good Christian education rightfully puts God at the center of everything and says, because God, he is our creator and he created all things, that means that he created all these subjects. So learning any of these subjects without keeping glorifying him in mind will ultimately fail the overall objectives. So, good Christian education puts God at the center, but you still have isolated subjects. Now, because a great Christian education recognizes that because God created all these subjects, they all bear his fingerprints. And so you can get little glimpses of God through studying math and science and history and fine arts and philosophy. But additionally, those things, as you study them, will give glory to him and help you know a little bit more about him. So the deeper, when you study a subject deeply, it should let you know more about the creator who designed those subjects. Now, a classical Christian education no longer says these are all isolated subjects. It recognizes that the Lord created a universe, not a multiverse. So all these things are like what we call subjects are really human constructs to understand things and kind of grapple with them on a smaller scale. But all these things interweave and interconnect together. So when I'm studying fine arts, that's affected by the philosophy of the people of that time and the worldview of those people. And that is impacted by what's going on in history at that time. But even when we learn about math and science, those are coming into the context of the history of that time period and the philosophy of the worldview of the people who were developing those skills. So a classical Christian education, so like a good classical book would be, there's a book called Mathematics, Is God Silent? And I struggle to find a place for that on my bookshelf because I want to put it with math because it says mathematics on the cover. But then I realized, oh wait, this is actually talking a ton about the history of math. And we're talking about the Greeks and the Romans and, you know, the Japanese and what's going on in Africa and things like that. And so I'm like, maybe it's a history book. But then I also wrestle because it sounds a lot more like philosophy because he's really delving into why these societies believed what they did about mathematics. So a good classical book should have interweaving and I should struggle to put that on my bookshelf essentially. Now, the big difference that you see between CC, so inside these little circles, you see subjects. But when you go to our catechesis wheel, which I think you'll see all over our CC catalogs and you see it like on shirts and you see it on water bottles and stuff like that, you'll see the difference here is that we have, instead of these subjects inside here, we have what we call strands. And we're going to talk a lot about the strands in a little bit here. But instead of math, science, history, etc., you see exposition, grammar, debate, research, reasoning, and logic. Okay, and so where did our subjects go? Well, our ultimate goal with classical education is to learn the tools of learning. We have Dorothy Sayers' essay called "The Lost Tools of Learning." It's an excellent essay to talk to read in your spare time. But she's saying that there are more essential tools than the subjects. Now, we will use subjects to learn the tools. So, for example, I could use the subject of biology to learn the skill or to learn the tool of doing research, okay? Or I could use some sort of mathematics like algebra to study the tool of doing logic. Exposition is a great tool that really works well if we're using literature to learn that tool. Okay, so you'll see as we go through, we have these things called strands instead of subjects. I'm going to hit this kind of quick. So the basic, the strategy for learning anything can break down to 3 levels. Okay, we have our grammar, our dialectic, and our rhetoric. Grammar is when we're learning basic names, dates, facts about anything. So if I want to learn cooking, I need to know what all my ingredients are. I need to know how my measuring cups work. I need to know how to set the oven. I need to know some basic recipes and how to read them and pull them off the shelf so I can make something. Then when I get a little bit better at knowing about something, I've got my basic understanding of things. Now I need to work on how do these things work together. And we call that the dialectic stage. Dialectic relates to the word dialogue. It's like questioning, asking questions, wrestling with the information. Okay, so I know that I have baking soda and I know I have baking powder and brown sugar and I have white sugar, but what happens, like what is the difference between when I use brown sugar and white sugar in a muffin? In some sort of muffin mix. And what are the things that happen if I change my proportions, things like that. And then the rhetoric stage is when we get to the point where I'm actually able to go into a kitchen. I don't necessarily have a recipe, but I might, and I use that recipe maybe as a guide, but I might branch off of that. But I can produce a meal for my family, looking at what I have in my kitchen, and just produce a meal to bless others through it. I no longer am dependent on a recipe book and the basic instructions to go with it. So I'm able to bless others with what I know. And my goal for covering classical education for you over and over again on all the meetings that I have is to get you folks to the point where you can be rhetorical with the classical model so that you can share this with other people in your community and start being a Titus II woman to them and help them along. Because ultimately, we won't have a full, everybody wants, everybody's always asking, okay, well, am I going to have enough classmates next year? Well, the way that we have enough people in our class next year and that we keep people moving through is by encouraging one another, reminding each other why we do these things, because it is different than what the public schools are doing. All right, so we find that this stage of learning where we learn the basic information, wrestle with the information, and then use the information to bless others correlates to the natural childhood development. So young children are very, very good at soaking up the grammar, okay, the basic information stuff. So they could learn all the characters for Paw Patrol and every character that's on TV, or they could learn their math facts, they could learn the timeline song, they could learn some history sentences, things like that. They could learn Latin vocab, for example. They don't necessarily need to love what they're learning. They're just excited that they can learn it and recite it, and they're very excited about that. Now, our Challenge B students are getting a little further than that, though. They still have to learn some grammar because they have to learn. They're just like last year, they were doing all those maps and stuff and memorizing all those maps, and they've been working on knowing their vocab. They still have to they still have to soak in some of that grammar, but they're getting more to where they want to be dialectic, and they want to start saying things like, well, but why is that relevant? So I know that Thomas Jefferson happened at the same time as Napoleon Bonaparte over in Europe, but what do they have to do with each other? And so when they start learning how to have a good dialogue and a good discussion, they can get to the point where they realize, oh, wait a minute, Napoleon needed to be able to fund his wars. That's why he did the Louisiana Purchase and sold so much territory to Thomas Jefferson, which began the westward expansion. And that's when you start connecting all these dots and having these layers of understanding, like the trunks of a tree, to understand things a little bit deeper. This is where our Challenge B students are starting to move into, and they're starting to kind of come awake to all these different ideas. Now, as our kids get older, Now they might be rhetorical on some things, but probably not yet. This is much more like challenge 2, 3, 4, and it really is a beautiful thing to watch. And I recommend going and watching some of the March Madness for the later challenge years and see where it's going. Challenge 3, we just recorded that one a minute ago, and we were just talking about how the kids are learning how to just like their minds are just being open to so many things that they had never considered before, poetry and Shakespeare, how to have a respectful debate and things like that. But they're not quite there yet in Challenge B. But this is the stage when they often want to, like a student will go off to college and they just want to tell people what they know. But if they don't have a solid basis of good, true information, they haven't learned how to wrestle and dialogue respectfully, they will get off to a college campus and they just start, protesting. They join protests and riots. They just start spewing stuff, but they don't have that good foundation and those good skills of learning to be able to bless others and uncover truth in that. So that is why we're doing what we do at CC. So I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, and you will hear us talk about these things over again. There are 5 core habits for the grammar stage, and there are 5 common topics that we use to help train our kids to dialogue and wrestle with information. And there are 5 skills at the rhetoric stage. And if my student is having trouble understanding something, or if I am having trouble understanding, I need to sit there and analyze, okay, is the trouble with my grammar? Do I not understand my grammar? Maybe I need to look at my skills of grammar. Am I attending carefully? How is my skill of memorizing, etc.? If my struggle is more with connecting the dots and I'm not dialoguing, I'm not able to discuss ideas, I need to go back to my 5 common topics. Am I defining things correctly? Do I know how to compare things? Or my student, I can say, okay, let's talk about like the relationship between these things. And then later when we get into the rhetorical skills, like if we're struggling with that, we can look at these things and say, where is my hang up? We teach you these things because we are equipping you to evaluate your students' understanding, what is getting them hung up, and what can help them move forward. Okay, because sometimes life gets hard. I know in our situation, sometimes life gets really difficult. We have a lot of medical circumstances, but these tools help me narrow down what my student needs at every area of their life. And it helps me evaluate for myself. If I am struggling, what skills do I really need to work on and at what stage am I at? So for those of you who've been around with CC for a long time, I don't have a slide for this one. You know that our mission is to know God and make him known. So you remember the man at the center? That is not our mission. SAT scores are not our mission. I think that your students through CC will get good SAT scores. And I think that they will get into good colleges, and I think that they are well equipped for vocational training or to support their families as they get older. Those are all great things, but our ultimate goal is to glorify God through our education and through raising our children. So we just need to establish that that is our firm foundation that we base everything. Okay, so with that, there are 5 vision statements. We are here to pursue truth, to embrace stewardship, to act with courage, to preserve freedom, and to do hard things. So Challenge B is exciting because there's a lot of cool things that we're learning, but it's not as scary as it's going to be in high school, because right now the transcripts don't really count just yet. But next year in the Challenge 1 year, it's going to take some courage, because this is when the rubber meets the road. This is where it's like for real. This is going on a high school transcript to be turned into colleges. So we say that and honestly, things do get hard when you get into high school, but we strongly believe that the Lord can equip you, and that CC, like the community of CC, can come alongside you to do hard things, but it is going to take some courage. So if the Lord has called you to homeschool your child, has called you to homeschool your child through high school, and has called you to use CC, we think that you can trust the Lord in that. But first ask, has the Lord called me to this? And then move forward with courage in that. So all right, that's my little soapbox. So 3 pillars of CC. We are a Christian organization. These are on page 5 of your catalog if you want to discuss these with your husband later, or if any husbands are on the call, if you want to discuss this with your family. But these are our 3 pillars. We are a Christian organization. We strongly believe in community, and community means your family, your CC community, and the broader community of the Christian, the Christian community worldwide. So we are Christian, we are community, and we are classical, because we believe that classical education embodies the most natural skills of learning, which is what I've been talking to you about. Okay, so back, I was talking to you about these strands. We have exposition, grammar, debate, research, reasoning, and logic. I'm going to give you a little snippet of what each one of those means before we go into actually discussing what we're doing specifically in Challenge B for each one of these. This is not official CC verbiage. They have official vision statements for each strand, but I just don't have a slide for that right now. But they've given me their approval that this is roughly the correct gist of it. So exposition, the strand of exposition, is expressing clear thoughts to winsomely persuade others of truth. Grammar is analyzing the nuanced structure of language, any language, to better understand and utilize it in the discovery of truth. Logic is applying the systematic rules of an orderly universe to arrive at truth. Research, I think you're seeing a theme here. Research is discovering and sorting through information to uncover truth. Debate is the exchanging of ideas and information with the goal of persuading others towards truth. And reasoning is correctly judging the difference between truth and falsehood, justice and injustice. So those are our goals in each strand. Not necessarily to get a 5 on the AP chemistry exam. That's attainable, but these are our ultimate goals, is to learn these tools of learning anything. All right, so you saw the common theme throughout there was truth. And I didn't highlight it on the slide back there, but if you saw that tree, this one right here, what do you see the tree is growing in? It is growing in the truth. Okay. And ultimately, God is our source of truth, not human understanding. And that's what we try to draw attention to in every strand. Okay. So this is our challenge program scope and sequence. I believe it's on page 40 of your catalog. I don't have it memorized as well as I ought to. Yes, this is on page 40 of your catalog because I know it's kind of fuzzy here. So we are going to be discussing, this is all laid out according to a very systematic plan where each one builds on the other. So as you're going, when you are doing challenge 1, I am hearing on all these slides where the directors are leading us through all the different strands, they say, oh, challenge 1 is totally building off of what happened at challenge A science fair project. And then I hear on the challenge 4 call, oh, the senior thesis is totally building off of what they learned in challenge 1 for their science paper. So you can see all these things stack up, and each one of these strands is building upon one another. So, all right, so again, have your catalog handy to take notes. And then Beth, we're going to turn it over to Beth, and she's going to give us her perspective a little bit on why she loves Challenge B. And I'm going to drink a water because I just...
Okay, good idea. I do. I love Challenge B. This is my first year directing it. I'm hoping to direct it again someday because I have 3 others coming up into it. And I've been encouraged this year because it's the same class I had for Challenge A. It's the same students. And I've just been encouraged that they are taking more ownership of their own education, of their own thoughts, of their own dialectic brains. They're just naturally arguing. I say arguing, but what's a better word? Discussing, sometimes with passion. And being responsible, taking responsibility for their homework, for what they do at home, for conversations. So and again, if you do get to see a future challenge class call, I was really encouraged because I was on the challenge 1 call because my daughter's going to be in challenge 1. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. And I just really appreciated what Jamie was saying about her students and how she saw the most growth in challenge 1. And so it's just such a natural, like Krista was saying, it's a natural progression between the trivium. It's just a natural progression between child to teenager to adult. So it's encouraging.
It is very encouraging. I love seeing it. So year by year. All right, so tell me about the logic strand.
Okay, so for the logic strand, we are doing the math map. It rolled out worldwide last year with complex, and then this year we're on monomials. And each week we start the class with looking at the artwork, discussing it. How do you see math? How do you see math in the unseen where you normally wouldn't see math? There's a quote and a prayer sometimes on it, and we might wrestle with that. And then you can see there's that map, the map of where we're going. So every week we say, okay, we're still in first dimension, or, oh, we're for example, tomorrow is week 27 for us, and we are starting our last 3 weeks in the math map, and that is in n dimension, which are dimensions that we can see mathematically, but we can't build them or create, we can't draw them. And so the kids, of course, love that. And I'm freaking out because I like to have everything, nice and neat and orderly in my head. And when you're in the 52nd dimension, that's not, I can't even compute that. I can't even imagine what that looks like. So we usually will wrestle with the information, with the charts that are in there. We try to get some of the homework done, just so that they have an idea of what they should be doing. Each 4 pages is the lesson. The lesson is in 4 pages, and then the next 4 pages. So like 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all encompassing, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. If you look at page 1, page 5, page 9, page 13, they're all going to have the same ideas, but just different problems, different computations. So some families like to do teaching one main theme a day, or some people just like to do pages 1 through 4, 5 through 8, 9 through 12, which kind of encompasses the whole idea for that week. Let's see, I don't use flashcards in class, although I know some directors do. That's more for at home. But that really helps, and Crystal will talk about this, to get their grammar down for math. And it's not so scary. You might not know what phi is, but you just know what the symbol means, you know what its name is, you know what number it represents. And if you memorize that, when you see it in the math eventually, it's not so scary anymore. You're not like, oh my goodness, I'm reading Chinese. It's like, no, I know what that is. I read it with my flashcards. And then what else? There is something at the back called careful calculations. And I do have my children do that every week. But it's just kind of a recap. You can call it a test, but it's just to see, this is what we talked about this week. Can you show me if you understand what it means? And then there's also a game on the back that I really haven't taken advantage of, but my son's Challenge Ace director, she is great at playing those games every week. I still have not taken advantage of learning about them.
That's why it's so cool that there's like we do it over and over again, is like, because I don't feel guilty that I missed it, this week, because we have a number of years left to hit it. So
Yeah.
some years we do Fox and the Geese and some years we don't, and it's okay. No guilt. So, all right. So all right. So the things that they need to have in class are they need a set of booklets. And so for monomials is the one that's covered for challenge B. But some people don't realize that if you aren't doing Math Map at home, if you're only doing it to participate in community, you can actually reuse your complex booklets this year if you like. Like if you haven't been doing all the lesson pages, you've just done some of them, you can reuse them. But that's only if you also have another full math curriculum that you're doing at home. So like if you're doing Saxon or something, but then you're participating in class with your complex booklets, you can use this one for another year. Because the sets do go in years of 3. Complex is in the middle of a set of 3. And then when you get to binomials, which is challenge 1, there will be a little bit of a jump. So you'll need to buy that set of booklets. But so just so you know, if you are using a different math curriculum, these booklets are reusable in that way. But you do still want to participate in class, and you do want these booklets. Otherwise, you're missing 1/6 of what the challenge program is about, and you're missing those beautiful discussions. So just heads up about that. Do have a set of booklets. And then the way it's designed is that your notations cards are kind of like your core cards. It's almost like your phonograms cards for kids, like knowing your alphabet, like your ABCs, the fact that PH together makes a F sound. It's just like those phonogram cards, but it's for math. So like Beth was saying, so it doesn't look like Chinese to you. And then aside from that, it's good to have a computation card. So something that's age appropriate for that student. So like maybe the complex, maybe last year you guys were struggling with exponents, okay, but now you feel like exponents, you're pretty comfortable on that, and you're like, okay, let's try to do the algebra cards this year, or maybe like the fractions cards, because the fraction cards actually have some more complex things than people might realize. But kind of leaf through those when you go to parent practicum and kind of get a judge on what computation level is good for your student to have. So you should have a notations card to start off that set first off, and then once you feel kind of comfortable with notations, go ahead and throw a set of computation cards on there. So let's see, aside from, do you ever use the math trivium table yourself?
I do not personally. I do have one, but I have yet to use it.
Okay. I used that a lot when I was an essentials tutor prior to the math map coming out, because the stuff that's in there helped us get a concept of the way numbers work. But now I'm seeing a lot of what's in the math trivium table is actually included in the math map. It's sprinkled throughout. Like I'll see things about, oh, that's on the math trivium table. So it's a handy resource, but I feel like at this age, it's not really as necessary. So just FYI about that. So when you're looking through the catalog, I will put on what the official catalog shows, but I will tell you the things that you don't really need to have. So the only thing that's 100% necessary are the notations cards and a level of the math map. All right.
And are we allowed to say, Krista,
Oh, yeah.
that if they are directing monomials this next year, that they will receive?
That's binomials.
Oh, that's right.
So if you're directing, whoever is leading the charge on the new level gets a free, that's a little incentive to do the new level, gets a free set of the math map. So like the challenge 1 tutors are getting that this year.
Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, no, that's all right. So you were the one that benefited this year.
Yeah.
So
I've
are you
benefited
doing
every
challenge
year
1?
so far. Yeah.
Oh, have you? Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, good for you. All right. So how is Latin going for you guys?
Okay, so Latin. I love Latin because I think it's very mathematical and reasonable and has a lot of rules, but we'll be going over Henley 1 rules, challenge A, challenge B, challenge 1, and then that'll be a platform for the later challenge years. So I think it's a lot of fun. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like a mystery, and you have to find out what conjugation you need or what declension you need. And I just think that's super fun. So the Henley 1 book.
Mindset. It's in your
What?
perspective. So that's a
Yeah.
really good way to think of it.
That's true. So the Henley 1 is a purple book, and it's pretty thick. Krista and I do this differently. A lot of times the student will need to have the book just open to the page they're on. And since it's spined, it's hard to leave it open unless you crack it, I guess. So what a lot of people do is they will take it to, for example, I took it to Office Max, or maybe it was Office Depot, or they the same company now, and they were able to spiral bound it for me. So that way I spiral bound all my Henleys in my house, and so that everyone has their own copy and they can just leave it on any page and it's not going to fall flat on them. And so Krista does it a little differently. Well, she has in the past anyway, since Latin Henley first year is split into challenge A does like lesson units 1 through 4. And then challenge B goes back and does lessons 1 through 4, but then it does units 5 through 13 or whatever. And then in challenge 1, you do challenges A and B, and then the second semester you add on and you finish the book. And so some parents like to take the book and divide it just into those units so that they have like a challenge A Latin, a challenge B Latin, and a challenge 1 Latin. I like keeping it together just because you never know when you're going to need to go back and refresh your memory on something. And it only has 1 dictionary. So that's kind of, where would you put the dictionary? Because they have an English to Latin and a Latin to English dictionary in the back.
So I have them make an extra photocopy of that. So I have the back of every unit. So it is a little bit of a pain in the neck. And one of my students loves the 3-book method, and one of my students wants it all in one. So I customize it. And if you want more information about how I do that, that is on my social media pages. I record videos. You can find that on there if you want to see what she's talking about. So,
but yeah, it's pretty intimidating. I mean, you guys, most of you said that you were an A. I mean, just the font of the writing and how it's all smushed together, and it is kind of intimidating, but I think CC does a good job of breaking it down into what you need to go over for that week and the different exercises that'll help you. And then to go along with this, of course, you have your blue Henley, which I spiral bound. Yeah, it's bluer in real life, but you guys probably already have that. And that is all of your rules, your grammar rules. which you should be making copies, not copies, you should be handwriting out your rules. They're very important. The purple book will a lot of times tell you where to find it in the blue book. And then there is a white Henley book, which you don't need, but it does have the answer key. So if you're doing all the homework and you're just like, I don't know if this is right, am I doing this right? Then the white book comes in handy. I personally use a different answer key. It's from Memoria Press. But to be
I'm also
honest,
using the ladies, was it the Our Lady of Peace or something like that? So there's a couple
okay,
different ones floating out there.
it was
So,
gifted to me because
oh,
my sister does challenge. So yeah,
oh, okay, yeah.
but I do love it. I love
Mhm.
the Memoria Press. Anyway, and then the Latin workspaces, my particular students, so I have a B and an A, they didn't really love it because they just didn't think it gave them enough room to really wrestle with, especially translating English to Latin. Latin to
Mhm.
English is pretty easy, and the kids will catch on real fast.
Mhm.
Because if you pretty much know what the vocab word means, you can kind of just conjugate it in your head. But of course, English to Latin is the hardest. So I appreciate that the Latin spaces, do I have one? No, I don't. They do have that you have to copy your charts in those. They have the exercises that are required, so you don't have to go through. And then if you're a mom, you can just check to see, okay, you did your chart, you did your answers. You know, if you didn't want to go over them in the answer key, or if you trusted them to correct themselves. I personally just use paper.
Book paper. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I did with my first. Yep.
And so, yeah. So with Challenge A, you guys were doing the first how many ever units. Then next year, first semester, you're going to be redoing Challenge A, which is really great. I mean, because they've already done it once and it's not as
For the same
scary.
call. It's like what we
And
do at
then,
Ascension. Yep.
and then, yeah. And then a second semester, you're adding on the next couple units. And then Challenge 1, I haven't experienced that yet. Because it's real smushed. But yeah, I really love this strand.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. And
And
you
I love
had,
seeing it dawn on the kids' faces when
yes.
they get something right or they figure
So,
out that's why I do that.
and this is important because I know in my students challenge A class, there's somebody who is like, oh, I think my student needs to redo this or take a summer class or something. And so, no, they're going to go back and do it again. So there's a wonderful character building exercise in doing this process. It's learning to do hard things because they go through it and it's hard. But then they come back and they do it again and it's a little less hard and they realize, oh wait, I remember some of this stuff and I knew more than I thought I did. And then when they go back into challenge 1 and they start at the beginning and go through again, it is that deepening of understand. It's that layers of understanding and realizing, oh, this once was hard, but now it's not hard for me anymore, you know? And so it's that character building through that so that other things in their life, when it gets hard, they will remember, oh yeah, Henley Latin was hard in the beginning too, but I was able to do that eventually. And just like this hard thing I'm doing now, I can do it again. So a lot of CC's things are built-in character exercises into the curriculum, which I think is beautiful. So well, you covered the materials pretty well. I'll just say a couple other things. So you do need to have your purple book, which you already have, your first year book, unless you're new this year, you'll need that first year purple book. You'll need the blue grammar book. That grammar book is like all the lists of grammar rules, and those two books work together. And then your answer key, you should have some sort of answer key, preferably. Now, the way we use Henley's answer key, the way that was designed to be used, is it's sort of like I hand my student the answer key. And when they're struggling, kind of like with Math Map, we're allowed to look at the solutions guide. They're allowed to kind of say, okay, how did I do that? Did I do that right? Oh, they did it slightly differently. They put their words in a different order. Oh, that's right. I remember my tutor saying that the verb goes last or something like that. So it's to help them teach themselves a little bit. But then if you want something for keeping a grade, sometimes having something like the Memoria Press or the Our Lady's book, whatever it is, having a more complete answer, because some of them, they say, C, answer this or C, answer that. So just so you know about that answer key. Latin workspace, like what Beth was saying, some people like more room to write. my daughter, she just used notebook paper and it was great. However, I did notice that sometimes she could pull it over on me that she hadn't done her exercises because it was harder for me to check when I was busy with a little one. So when I have other kids to juggle, I think it's really handy being able, like Beth, you were saying, just to open it up, see whether it's done or not. Also, it prompts you to copy the charts. A lot of times my daughter wasn't copying the charts and I didn't necessarily recognize that because I didn't have the Henley right with me to say, oh yeah, she was supposed to copy her charts and she didn't do it in her notebook paper, but it's obvious and it's in the Latin workspace. And you do need the A and the B. A is for first semester, B is for second semester. And then Latin trivium tables, I'll tell you, I didn't care much for that when I was in A and B. I did end up starting to lean more and more and more on it the further we went in Henley. And I found that it was a very concise way for me to look up stuff without going to my blue grammar book and flipping through and trying to find stuff. So it was very compactly organized and I could shove it in a backpack or shove it in the back seat of the car, the little pocket holders or something, and we could do car school a lot easier than packing everything up. So Catsall's Latin Dictionary, you won't need this year. It is listed as a resource. Eventually you will want it, and occasionally your students might pull it off the shelf, but I really don't think it's necessary this year. Just everything you need is pretty much in Henley 1, like all the vocab. And I highlight all our vocab pages in yellow, or I have my kids do it, and so they can look that up just like they were in a dictionary anyway. So, okay, tell us about research. I love this strand.
All right, so for the research strand, first semester we are doing a history of astronomy, really kind of a history of astronomers. They will need 2 resources, and we start with astronomers that were before Christ, and then we end, I believe, Stephen Hawking is our most modern scientist. Yeah, I'll say scientist. And so they are each week to kind of do a KWO with at least 2 resources.
Keyword
What
out.
they, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
Yes.
CC, we have a lot of acronyms, so it's like just
Yes,
doing
sorry.
keyword outline.
They will do a they'll summarize the 2 resources into 1 paper. And so every week they will have, I'm not going to say a paper, they'll have a project due. It's not always going to be a paper. Sometimes it could be, you could do something creative. You could, so for one of them, for Galileo, I think my daughter baked a cake and made this, she made each level like a different solar, I don't know exactly how she did it, but it was delicious. And I had a student who loved to make PowerPoint presentations and add lots of pictures. So that's something that he enjoyed. And then I had another girl who loved poster board and puffy paint. So a lot of times she would make her astronomy project would be something that she was able to draw and then make beautiful. And then every week they're also encouraged to tell what their project is. If it's a paper, they read it. And then we give them, their glows and grows, eye contact, good posture, loud voice, things like that. The final project is really fun. Was it the final project for the first semester? They have a shoebox and they choose an astronomer, and they just put things in the shoebox so you can guess who the astronomer was. I just thought that was adorable. They're so creative. And then for second semester, we start with Defeating Darwinism, which is usually a college age book, maybe at least high school. It is a little difficult. There will be words they need to look up to see what the vocabulary means. And it's kind of you can guess from the title, it talks about the different worldviews and it helps to defend monotheism, Christianity versus naturalism, secularism. But the skill they're learning in this book is they're going to be making outlines. So some of your students, i.e. boys, will make the most simple outlines, big title, and then point 1, point 2, oh, we're ready for another point B, or you can be very thorough. But they're just learning A, 1, little Roman numeral I, things like that. But it did make for conversation, and for my students, it was really the first time they'd ever really thought outside a monotheistic Christian worldview. And so I didn't want to teach them anything that their parents hadn't taught them. So that gets a little tricky when you're the director, but it facilitates great conversation, some arguments, which I love, and because it's great. And then Discovering Automous is a chemistry. It's kind of an intro to chemistry, really the first 20 elements, but it has a lot of vocab. They're building their grammar. They're going to be using this in Challenge 1 and Challenge 3. They are memorizing the first 20 elements, which if they did cycle 3 in foundations, they at least have heard the first 12. If their mother was like me, they learned the song, or they had to do Memory Master. So they probably have those elements anyway. And this just kind of goes into why the elements are placed where they are in the table, and what does this mean, and how many protons and electrons and neutrons, and it just kind of gives them a glimpse. But it's pretty fun. And I'm trying to think for the strand, if you're a director, we tend to play a lot of games for this strand. Like tomorrow, I have the first, I don't know, it's more than 20, but like I have little atom cards or element cards, and I just shuffle them and throw them out, and they have to put it in order. Or I give them a blank periodic table, and they have to fill in the first, have you learned the first 8? So they have to fill in, they're trying to race each other. So it's really building on the grammar of chemistry.
All right. So this strand isn't really like resource heavy on this year anyway. The only thing you really must have you need a copy of Defeating Darwinism, and you need that little booklet, Discovering Atomus. And that is actually, I think it's printable on CC Connected, or the little booklet. I think it's like, I want to say it's like $5 or $8, something like that. And it's just a little packet you put in like a binder for the kids to sort through. Aside from that, we continue in our family, we continue using the science journal that we had been using in A, and we take notes and do our keyword outline, stuff like that for our astronomer in there. And then we also often will do a diagram or a timeline, something like that. So my son has chosen to do that, but that's just totally optional. But you do need to, like Beth was saying, you do need to have 2 sources. Some directors say 2 to 3. So what we've done in our family is we use the Acts and Facts scientist cards, because some of these scientists are kind of hard to find. I'm just going to be honest. There's a couple of them that are little. I can't remember the name of the African American and the created. What did he create? A really good clock and a telescope, I believe.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. And I can't remember his name, but that's a little bit more of an obscure scientist to research. So we found that having those famous scientist cards were super helpful to get the basic information. And then aside from that, we often, we have like a good library on our own that we've developed over the years. But there's going to be a couple that you have trouble with. So there's a book called, I think it's just called The Astronomy Book, and it's a blue book with yellow letters. It's called The Astronomy Book. That had most of the scientists in it. Also, Brian Builders, that library series, that science series of books. It starts in the starts at creation, and then it goes to ancient astronomers, and then it kind of goes sequentially through into the modern age. We got a lot of good content through those, and we listened to the audiobooks of this while we were doing this to kind of help us understand the picture behind it. But you really just need 2 to 3 source texts. So to complete
And
your science.
as a tutor, I did, of course, you can use the internet. I did ask the students not use Wikipedia. I said if it ends with .edu, .gov, .civ, those are mostly safe. But of course, it's up to the parents.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. But
And in our family, we work on, because it's always easy to find an article on the internet, but trying to find stuff in a book is a skill. And so kind of like they say, master your skills before you use AI. I'm also like, okay, let's master the skill of researching with books before I let you, like internet kind of helps you cheat a bit. So that is up to you. And sometimes we've had to go to the internet, and that's fine. But I try to start with a book if I can. Like I work on that skill with my kids using a book. So Now, because another thing that you talking about where to research, like not Wikipedia, stuff like that, some of what this strand is about, it's not just about knowing astronomers, it's knowing how to do proper research and like what is a good source to get your information from. Is it Wikipedia or is it a, you know, a .edu website, et cetera. So keep that in mind. It's not just about that final product, it's about the process. And we talk about this a lot in CC. It is the process more than it's about the product. So, okay, so there is a parent resource I really strongly recommend for this strand. It's called The Soul of Science. Nancy Pearcey is the author, and along with Charles Thaxton. Nancy Pearcey has a lot of our parent resources that are really, really excellent. She is considered like the premier evangelical intellectual of our generation. She is the protege, or the, you know, she was a student of Francis Schaeffer, if you've heard of him. We study him quite a lot in the later challenge years, but this book is really excellent. It helped resetting our minds onto how our culture has sort of hijacked this idea that you have Christianity over here and you have science over here, and faith and science are at war against one another. And they've hijacked the story about Galileo, for example, and she talks about it in here. They've hijacked that story to make it sound like it was the church versus science. And that's really not what's going on there at all. And that is a completely recreated story that has only been perpetuated in maybe like the past 70 years or so. And I strongly advise like either reading this book. I recommend reading this book anyway, but like look up some podcasts about Christianity and the Galileo affair or some things like that. Kind of helps you see, oh, what is really going on here. And when your students are looking for research materials, just going to the library is going to give them some misinformation, honestly, on this subject, especially about Galileo, Newton, and what's his name, Stephen Hawking. The standard library resource will not give you the full picture. Yeah, so it's about finding truth. How do we find truth? Thank you, Tessie. It's a good point. Ultimately, the goal is to teach them to find truth. Okay, so tell me about the exposition strand, Beth.
Okay, so in Challenge B, like Challenge A, it is literature. First semester, we are looking at 5 books: The Phantom Tollbooth, which is fiction; Little Britches, which is based on a true story; Where the Red Fern Grows, which is based on a true story; The Hiding Place, which is a true story; and then Tanglewood Tales is 5 Greek mythology stories, but retold by Nathaniel Hawthorne. So you might recognize some of them as you're reading them. But we do a lot of things. It's pretty much what we do in Challenge A. We are going to go one more essay in the Lost Tools of Writing. So in Challenge A, you did essays 1 through 6. And then in Challenge B, we're going to go lesson essays 2 through 7. So Annie charts every 3 weeks. A book is going to be due. So we're going to start our Annie chart. Excuse me, I'm sorry, just a second. Guys, I'm on a call. Good night. Good night. You're not going to, okay, goodbye.
I have that in the background on mine. It's just moms making it work, you know?
So yeah, every 3 weeks we'll be, just like in Challenge A, finding what you want your thesis to be. As the weeks develop, you are going to start getting your dress ups that you would have learned in essentials, but also you're going to be using similes and metaphors and parallelisms and what else? Antithesis, and you're just going to be adding those to your story to make it a much better persuasive essay. You're trying to persuade someone of your thesis. Should Milo have gone to whatever that land is called in Phantom Tollbooth? And then in second semester, we look at a bunch of short stories. And the book is a textbook, as well as it has the actual short stories in it. Okay, thank you, honey. And so the stories are kind of grouped together, like the stories that are all narrative are grouped together, and then the stories that have really great twist endings are grouped together, and then the stories that have a lot of dialogue or a lot of dialect in the dialogue, those are grouped together. And so then each week we're able to delve into specific things in a short story, and then by the end, each week we'll be talking about their own short story. The first week we just start with maybe characters, maybe come up with 3 characters. And by the end, they've completed a 2 to 10 page short story that the tutor will publish. I'm sorry, will gather all the stories and put in a book for your family and friends to enjoy. And let's see, what else did I want to say about this? Annie charts are important in a lot of ways because they go into the 5 common topics. But in Challenge B, you're really going to use Annie charts in exposition, and then you're really going to use Annie charts in debate, especially in mock trial when you're trying to figure out when you have the, and we'll go into that in just a little bit, but when you have your case, Pennsylvania versus Tatum Zilius, and you want to make an Annie chart for what pieces of evidence do they help the defense? Do they help the prosecution? The witness statements, do they help the defense? Do they help the prosecution? So you'll be using Annie charts a lot. So hopefully you guys like the Annie charts. Let's see, is there anything else? Yeah, and then you can take it from here.
Okay. So if you still have, if you were in A, you already have your Lost Tools of Writing. And remember, that's a play on the words, the Lost Tools of Learning. Lost Tools of Writing is also it's a thinking program, not just a writing program. But if you're new this year, you will need to get the parent guide or the teacher guide, as well as a student guide. If you used the student guide last year in A and your student wrote all over all of them, you have to make a decision whether you think your student can reuse that, because they do back up and then they kind of go through it again. And you want them to use loose leaf paper, or do you want to print out new copies on your computer of those? Like, because some of them have like outlines that you fill out, things like that. Or do you want to go ahead and buy another student book? So that's up to you. Some people have more time than money, and so they want to print out new ones or make copies, or have you or guide your student through using loose leaf paper. And some people have more money than time, and then they just want to go ahead and buy another student book. So your decision on that. But you do need to have both of those items. Remember, your director or your tutor is a tutor, not a teacher. So the teacher guide is for you to use. So keep that in mind. You do need a copy of each one of the books. As much as I would love for you to always buy from the CC bookstore, if you do buy in the CC bookstore over Amazon, like if you're going to buy new, buy from the CC bookstore, because you want to be supporting people that are, of the like mindset. But if you do need to buy a used copy, I think for this level, it's pretty okay. Like it's not as, some of the levels, it's important that your whole class has the same book so they can see the same page numbers. But in this level, it should be fine. I think it's more important that your student has a copy that they can have as their own, and that they can do like highlighting it, take notes in it, or flag it with highlighting tape or things like that. It is more important that they engage with the books than that they have a new pristine book that you feel like they need to keep neat and tidy for their sibling that will be coming up behind. So I think that writing in your book is one of the most important skills that I've taught my daughter. And then she has been a blessing throughout her life. All her books, they become journals for her and good friends. So I'm not saying don't buy CC's books, but buy a book that you're willing to let your student mark in. You do need both the words aptly spoken guides. Actually, Beth, somebody said, so Jamie said on the Challenge A call that you do need to have the American literature one, or the light yellow one. Is that your experience in A?
No, I never, so that just has questions for all of the Challenge A literature, all the
Okay.
Challenge B literature.
Okay.
But I think that's more for the families. I think
Okay.
that's more for if parents want to engage with their child about the book they're reading. Those are some questions they can ask, and they can, expand their students' minds. But I never used it in class.
Okay. But then the brown book you do have to have. You have to have
because
that
the
one.
short stories are in that book.
Right, exactly. And another thing about the short stories is the authors of those short stories are all authors that they will be encountering in the rest of Challenge. So when they go read Tale of Two Cities, if Charles Dickens, they will go back and be like, oh yeah, that's right, I remember reading his short story here. Like there's a correlation for all of those. Anyway, but I do want to say for words aptly spoken. So now as a director, when I directed A and B, I did use those questions a lot in class, but that's director preference. So your director, like if you're directing next year and you're trying to get a conversation going, I found that it can be helpful versus kind of coming up with my own stuff. Just like if you were an essentials tutor, sometimes if I try to create my own sentence on the fly, it was a hot hot mess. But if I looked at like our mother tongue, that helped guide me a bit. Now, as a mom, I mean, we are called classical conversations, and I really believe that the conversations we have with your student are more important than the worksheets or, you know, whatever else. I think that having a dialogue with my student about, you know, what they're putting on their Annie chart and what issues do they want to wrestle with are some of the most important things about CC. So sometimes, like I said, I run around. I have a child with like major medical needs, so we're often running back and forth between therapy and hospitals and doctor's visits. So I keep one of these on my dashboard, the one of the words aptly spoken for whatever level my student's at. So when we stop at a red light, I look at them and say, hey, what book are you reading right now? I've kind of lost track between your siblings and all that. And they're like, oh, I'm reading Little Britches. So I pull it off my dashboard. I open it up to Little Britches. I scan. I find I kind of might ask a few questions and say, oh, what about this? And maybe like, yeah. And then like they give a simple answer, but then I hit something. I ask questions until I hit something that triggers something in them to spark a conversation. And then I just put it back on my dashboard, and we have a good, like, you know, 5, 10, 15-minute conversation with the siblings in the car as well, to really engage in that topic. So even though I probably, maybe for each child, I have used there's been like 5 to 10 conversations that have been initiated, or questions that I've actually like have initiated a conversation. Those things were gold for me. So while you don't use it, like Memoria Press puts out those literature guides and all that, and you have to fill them all out. Those are gut-wrenchingly like soulless. I'm sorry, but they just are. That is not the purpose of these guides. It doesn't have an answer key at the back of the book. This is made for, there's the standard comprehension questions, like, did you read the chapter? What's the name of his horse? Things like that. But then the second part, the thought questions, that is where the gold is about, okay, so was he right stealing that chocolate from his father? Like, did he took that chocolate out of the pantry, and if they were partners, really, he was like, his argument was that he also helped pay for that chocolate. Do you think it was okay what he did when he went out to the chopping block and took himself off a slice? Those conversations are really what the meat of what CC is about. So that's what I use these words aptly spoken books for.
And if your student struggles with an Annie chart, those conversations can help them think about, what do I want to make my Annie chart on? So
yeah, when they're like, I don't know, your typical teenage boy, I don't know, and you start going through that and say, well, it sounds like you should do it on chocolate because you have strong beliefs. A parent resource for this level that I would say, I don't have a parent resource for every strand, but I would say it just so happens 2 of my favorite parent resources hit Challenge B. So because you will be talking about short stories about things like theme and character and setting and all these things, it's all based on this Freytag's pyramid that you'll find at the beginning of the short stories book. And they're just pulling that straight from this curriculum here. It's called Teaching the Classics. It is excellent as to do with a group of other homeschoolers, because the DVDs frankly are expensive. But if like somebody has the DVDs and then you get together and everybody just buys the little workbook that goes with it, or the it's not a workbook, but it's like a seminar thing, seminar book. You guys can do like go ahead and do all the readings beforehand before you show up to class, and then you watch the videos together. And it's teachers do it as a 3-day seminar, 2 to 3 day seminar. But we find that we as homeschoolers, if we start at 8 a.m., we can go to like 5:30 p.m. and we can get it all done if we've done the reading in advance before getting together. But this will really hone in on your skills to dissect any literature that they're going to be encountering all through the challenge years. So they say this should help you with analyzing Tale of Peter Rabbit all the way up through Tale of Two Cities. And they use children's literature to do it, partly for time, because it's quick and easy to do, like something like Tale of Peter Rabbit, and they actually do use that book in the series. But it teaches you how to see what is the author really going for, so that you can have deep, meaningful conversations and really get what the author, what the point is behind what the author is saying. So I just love this program. So Beth, have you done that, by the way?
Yes.
You have? Okay. Did you like it? I forget. Were you in the one that we did at?
Yes.
Oh, you
Jen's.
were. That's right. It's all a blur to me. So did you enjoy it? Was
Yes.
it like because you lost a whole Saturday. You had to spend it with me in Catherine Roden's basement. So
Yes, it was very helpful, especially because I'm always confused about the climax of a story.
Oh, yes, yeah.
That
That's
always, I never know what that is. So it
yeah.
helped with that.
And which children's book did you pick at the end to do? I have to remember.
Fernando. I love that
Oh,
book about the
Ferdinand.
bull that smells the flowers.
Yes, yes. So you
I
can see
love
we,
him.
yeah, children's literature, but we had to figure out, okay, when was this book written, you know? And I remember that discussion. That was a good one. So, all right. So tell me about debate.
All right, so for the debate strand for semester, we have the American Experience Storybook, and that is full of different American patriots. And our basic question for the first semester is, what is a hero? And so we will go through this book anywhere from, I'm trying to remember who we start with, but let's say George Washington all the way to Ronald Reagan. And it's like kind of a little biography of each person or something specific that they did, something memorable that they did, and then we discuss, was it heroic, what makes them a hero. It also has a lot of leads to a lot of discussion because, for example, one of the men in it is Robert E. Lee. And some people feel very strongly that he should have followed his state instead of his convictions. And some people feel that he really should have followed his convictions rather than his love of Virginia. So, but does that, if can we both agree that he was heroic, even if we don't agree in his actions? I don't know, can we? So, that is the guide that we had for the first semester. And so that led to a lot of great conversations, sometimes heated. And then our second semester is mock trial. That's our capstone event. All semester, every week, we will be digging a little bit more into the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Zilius. And it is a trial against someone who's being convicted of third-degree murder. And your students will have a trial with another team, another CC team from another community, and they will go to an actual courthouse. They'll be seen by an actual judge. They will have roles, whether they're defense or prosecution. Some of them will be attorneys, some of them will be the witnesses, some of them will be the accused. Your jurors will be grandparents, neighbors, parents, who will decide the fate of Tatum Zilius. And then just every week you have Annie charts for why this might be used for prosecution, why this might be used for defense. They will play both sides. A coin is tossed or whatever at the beginning of their trial to see who's going to be prosecution first, who's going to be defense, and then they switch after a break. The judge, sometimes retired, sometimes still an active judge. But a lot of judges love doing these mock trials. They love seeing this in students. Eighth grade is still kind of young. I think that this program has really impressed some judges. Our group this year is going to be actually joining up with another community, two small classes to make a larger class, and they're in Indiana. So every other week, they come to us on our community day, and then the next week we go to them on their community day because it's not that far. And we have a Google Docs document that we all pour into so everyone can see everyone's ideas because we don't know our roles until about, I don't know, 8-9 weeks in. So everyone is helping everyone. And then finally we get the different roles. Okay, you're going to cross-examine this person. You're going to do the opening statement. They can choose what they would prefer to do, but of course it's at the discretion of the tutor, what roles people are going to be playing. And then for the big day, we all gather at a real courthouse. We're actually doing 2 this year, and so is Krista's team. We're actually going against Krista's team, Krista's
Yeah.
son.
Yeah.
Not going against, you know what I mean. It's all
Yeah.
in love and
Iron
friendship.
sharpens iron, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so our first group, we're going to actually travel to them. They're in Columbus, Indiana, so it's about an hour north of us. And then for our second mock trial, we'll be going to Shelbyville and battling against Central's B, which is Krista's son. And so I've always heard from different teams that I've experienced for different communities I've been in that after the first mock trial, the kids are like, but now we know what we're doing. We want to do it again.
Mhm.
And that was awesome, and now I'm not scared, and now I know what's expected of me. And it's like, okay, well, sorry, that was it. So that's why, and Krista will even tell you she's been encouraged to do 3 mock trials, just because it just I've been to one. I've only been to one.
Mm.
I was a juror, but it's really neat to see the kids work together. And then, I mean, I can't say it's cute, but it is when they're
Yeah, 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 'cause
they're
they're so
objecting
young.
and they're in their little suits, and I don't know.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
But
and but it's a real serious thing. It's very intimidating, and this is another thing where it's like they can do hard things, like where they think, "Oh my goodness, I'm gonna do what?" And it's the big looming thing all year round that everybody is scared of, but then they realize they can do it, and it's not honestly, it's not the hardest thing they're gonna do in CC. It's not, but it feels like the first big thing, the first intimidating thing that they master. So, so it's a big deal for them. All right. Well, so the only thing you do need to have the American Experience storybook, and you do need to have your mock trial notebook, and you are going to want to write in your mock trial notebook heavily. Like that's not like a pass it down to your next student. I have known people to go ahead and make photocopies. You can do that. You might, the cost of printing anymore, it's kind of gotten silly, but you can do that within a family if you want to make multiple copies or anything. Now, if you have a significantly younger child, they do change these every once in a while. So just be aware of that. But yeah, everybody needs to have their own mock trial notebook. Let's see. And then, okay, so reasoning, this is going to take a little bit. So reasoning has changed completely this year. And I'm actually going to refer you to another video for more details about this because it's going to take a little explaining. But the reasoning strand has changed this year. Last year, it has been the introductory logic and then the intermediate logic from Canon Press. Those we get hot and cold responses on. Directors or tutors who dig deep into that, or parents who will dig deep, love it and their students thrive on it. But the fact is, the majority of people, without having to, like, I probably wouldn't have been able to dig deep into it if I hadn't been a tutor, and I hadn't had the accountability of I have to learn this stuff so I can lead my class. And so I bet you anything, my daughter would not have gone through it very thoroughly because I wouldn't have been there to help her. So because that is the reality of what happens, usually about a third of the class is loving it, is doing well, is kind of working through it, usually because their moms were either a tutor this year or a tutor in past years. About a third of the class is like, they're sort of got it, but not really. And then the other third is totally checked out and have no idea what's going on. So because of that, we are going to be implementing a different, similar program that CC is designing for formal logic, where it's, doing the truth tables and the square of opposition at a later time, like for the upper challenges. But for now, we're doing fallacies. And I know your kids did fallacy detective this year. My son did the same thing. But the thing I find consistently with the fallacy detective is that it leads to a certain level of hubris. Uh-oh, something broke. A certain level of hubris on the part of the student where they just start saying, oh, red herring, oh, appeal to authority. And they're just throwing these things out there. The moms don't actually really know what's going on. And so they start sometimes backing down, which rewards the student for inappropriately calling things like, oh, that was an appeal to authority. It's like, well, wait a minute. I am your mother.
And you're grounded.
Yeah, like I should be appealing to authority. That's not a fallacy. And so, but then the students, as they go, they graduate from A and go into B, and they don't even know they can't really tell you what a fallacy is anymore. It kind of like seeps out their ear, and they don't really grasp it for long term. So we are taking away fallacy detective, and it's been a clunky thing. People have a strong affection because it's cute and the comics are fun and there's some nostalgia there, but there's also some clunkiness in using that program, to be honest. And I've struggled with that as a director with implementing that in class. So now we have this our new fallacy book. I'll go through that as quickly as I can. So it is drawing from the Echoes book series. So if you know, like we have like the Echoes, the Ancient World Echoes, New World Echoes, and Old World Echoes books, but it's taking stories from there and you're working as a detective to kind of hunt down these different fallacies. And the fallacies are grouped in 3 sections. And this is something that we're going to talk about all through the later challenge years. this pathos, ethos, and logos, these different arguments and these different appeals in the rhetoric stage. So these are the fallacies that we'll be addressing in addition to some other ones, but grouping them like this helps the students remember them long term. But what you're given is like sort of this fallacy hunter assignment. There is an overarching meta story where you are a fallacy hunter looking through the realm of myth or something, and you're going to hunt for these. And each realm that you go to, each town that you go to, you have to go hunting for some particular fallacies. You are given a sort of, well, let me go to a different slide. You are given the Fallacy Hunters Field Guide, which has the definitions of these that you're hunting for. This helps moms out too. You're given an encounter report where you have to you kind of ask yourselves question, okay, what did the king say about this? And what was going on in that situation? And then the mom, so for example, with the king story, the king first he makes an appeal to authority, which is totally appropriate because he's king. But then he starts making an appeal to pity and say, oh, it's so hard being king, blah, blah, blah. Well, that would be a fallacy. And he was trying to manipulate people's emotions inappropriately, and that was a fallacy. So it's showing what an appropriate appeal to that thing is and inappropriate. So the students are learning, oh, not every appeal to authority, or not everything is a red herring. Sometimes it's just mom is not going to answer my question. It's not a red herring. She doesn't feel like it's appropriate to answer the question right now. So that this is helping them tease out this in a little more nuanced way than what they've been getting. So then you'll find that there is at the end, for mom's sake, because moms can't necessarily go through all these stories with their student necessarily, there is this post-hunt debrief, which you will debrief your student. So that helps you kind of like the Words Aptly Spoken guides, kind of helps mom, engage in the conversation. This will help engage the student, the mom, in what the student is learning. And then they can it kind of helps, the student is actually kind of helping getting her on the same page while she's checking with their thinking about things and making sure it's accurate. There is an answer key and guide and a glossary as well included in the very back. All right, so that's first semester, okay? So first semester is the fallacies. Second semester is Marvelous to Behold. Now, this book is used in a Challenge 2 as a Western cultural history book, but we are going to use it in a very different way. We're going to use it in the study of aesthetics for second semester in the reasoning strand. So I'm not going to go through all of this just for the sake of time, but the essential idea is, if you remember me saying earlier that aesthetics and fine arts are actually visual and auditory philosophy. So that's partly why this is in the reasoning strand. So the concept behind that is, we often as homeschoolers, we talk about truth, goodness, and beauty, and somehow we're really into the truth. Everybody's rah truth. I agree, fully agree on that. Truth, goodness, yes, we want our kids to be virtuous, good people, and we are trying to teach values, but we've forgotten that one of those core things is beauty. And beauty is not defined by what we like or the individual person. Beauty is an attribute of God that is shown throughout creation. So when you glimpse something beautiful, you're seeing a fingerprint from God. And this is what this is trying to help highlight for our students. So there are some very beautiful pages in this book. It's a very big book, like coffee table size book, and it does have lay flat binding. It's not super thick. It is a little thin, but it is a larger format. So sometimes it might be hard to fit in some of the smaller backpacks that kids use. But what they will be doing is they will be spending time, these are the artists that they're going to be looking at, and the different artworks. So that's a Rembrandt, the Prodigal Son there. They will be in class spending time just looking, just attending. Remember, that's one of the grammar stage skills, is they're going to spend some time silently in class just looking at the artwork, not talking about it, not fiddling, not drawing on it, just spending time observing, kind of like what you would do in an art gallery. And also reminiscent of what they've just been doing in the foundations level, where they're listening to music. When sometimes the younger classes, they put an eye mask on, turn the lights off. We are not going to dance. We are not going to talk. We're not going to hum along. We're just going to attend to the music. Same thing in this, but we're attending to the visual art. And then there's going to be some time after they've all looked at the art for maybe 5-10 minutes. They're going to expand the amount of time that the kids are practicing their attention spans there. They're going to spend some time discussing, talking about beauty, and that's with the narration strand. And then they're going to do something to try to make it memorable. I'm going to skip through some of this. So this would be an example of a project that they would do at home. So the director will model that in class, that process in class. but then they will be sent home to look at 2 to 3 works of art and then spend some time journaling on that in various ways. So they're going to discuss what they saw. They're going to compare different things to other works of art. So if they've been assigned 2 works of art, they might compare the 2 together. And then they will do kind of like a little sketch or some sort of journal about it to help them remember it, to prompt them to discuss it in class. And then when they get into class, they'll be presenting to the class what they learned about the art by attending to it, what they learned through journaling and comparing to other artworks. So if you want more information, I go into this in far greater depth in this new product blitz, which I recorded. You can click on that and it'll take you to the recording, or it's on my YouTube channel. I will eventually be sending it out in a link in a newsletter, and it might have actually been in my last newsletter, might have had that too. Okay, so I'm gonna just hit some I already talked about the Soul of Science, Peacemaker. A lot of people at CC will talk to you about how amazing that is, and there is a student edition of that some people are starting to have their challenge A, B, and 1 students do, because this is an age where they are going to butt heads a little bit more because they're dialectic, and so teaching them how to be a peacemaker, not a peacekeeper, but a peacemaker, while still having to struggle with some of the debate topics and things like that, is something some parents really like. I would strongly recommend, though, if you are getting into this stage where your kids are getting more dialectic and you have not read the question yet, please, please, please go back and read the question, because it'll teach you about the importance of dialoguing in all these different strands. So, hey, Tessie, I want to answer your question super quick. I know you got to go. So you were asking about the Math Map flashcards. So I do that very, very loosely. It's very, if you go to a Math Map training, I'll talk in more depth about this. But I set a timer 5 to 10 minutes. I choose based on my child's attention span, but 5 to 10 minutes. We go through as many as we can quickly. There's different strategies. You can just hand them a set and see how many can you go through, or you can spend time to slow down and discuss them. So that really is just a mom thing. And then we go back and forth in our family between the notations cards and the computation cards. But I never do more than 10 minutes a day, and 5 minutes is much more standard. So, and we just kind of rotate through them. You'll find if you did 5 flashcards a day, every day of the school year, you'd be amazed at how much you learn. So, all right. So I just wanted to hit on that. So you're welcome. So if you haven't read the question, like I was saying, you ought to read that at some point. The conversation, if you've already read the question, consider reading the conversation, because that's on the horizon. That's when you're getting more into the rhetorical stage. But remember, the series is the core, the question, and then the conversation. So I do strongly recommend going through the series. Get some moms in your community. Those of you who've already read those, grab some moms and say, hey, let's do a book club. I'll go ahead and lead it. There are printable book club guides on CC Connected and in the bookstore. Lead a group through that, and it will bless your whole community, and you'll find it'll strengthen your community for the long run, so that your students, classmates can like stick it through all the way through graduation. I'm going to go through some CC Connected resources really quick. This is when you go to CC Connected, you're going to want to hit the Learning Center right there, and you can find every level has this printable digital directory for each level. I go ahead and print that out for my students' level. That way I don't have to jump on my phone to find stuff in the middle of the year when it's February or I have sick kids. I have that. I can pull it out and say, oh yeah, that's right. There's a Latin snippets. I really want to cover that this week because that's a good one. During the summer, this is your summer homework. Don't do this in August or even late July. You need to do this during the summer, or starting, as you're, late April, May, June, July, etc. Go through the CC Connected resources for your child's level. So you want to go to the Challenge B and start looking through all those. When you see something that is going to be useful for your student, you want to hit the heart on that so that you can find it easily later on. And then you can filter it just through my favorites. Also, there's a new feature on there where you can make a playlist. You can name it whatever you want, but you set it up. You can set it up for, oh, this is all the stuff I want for the reasoning strand, or this is what I want for week 16. I want my student to watch these videos, and I want to print this out for week 16. Organize that during the summer, because once the school year starts, it'll be a big blur and you'll forget all about those wonderful things. Also, there is the CC Connected, it's called CC Lite app, and you can access these things quickly so you don't have to jump on your laptop. Some older students I've heard, like in Challenge 4 and all that, their parents have put that app on their phone so that they can go through themselves and go through that playlist. So that's a way to get yourself organized for the year. Let me just kind of scroll through some of these. Some of these aren't relevant. Okay, there is a blog, if you're not aware of it. If you scroll all the way to the bottom on the main page, classicalconversations.com, there is a blog that will, when you do the search terms, if you search for Challenge B or mock trial or any of the defeating Darwinism, there's some really good articles on there, as well as some podcasts that'll come up that is good for summer reading to kind of, it's a further reinforcement of the things that Beth has been explaining to us. Transcripts are on your horizon. They're not this year, but just be aware CC has a transcript service to guide you through when your student is in challenge 1 and you have to start keeping transcripts. So, and there is a book that I use very successfully called just Transcripts Made Easily that was very helpful. Looking to the future, I know after this year, there's going to be a hard decision. After Challenge B, there's the hard decision of, am I homeschooling through high school? So I just want to let you know, CC does offer both concurrent enrollment to get college credit while you're doing your normal CC work. It's not a lot of additional work. It's really just CC level work is considered good enough for college credit. So we do have our concurrent enrollment, starts in Challenge 2. And then we also, CC also, you can get your undergraduate now through CC, and parents can actually go ahead and start working on their master's by teaching your student just at home. You can earn your master's through that. So I just want to let you know that as you're considering whether you stick it out through high school, just know that CC's programming has been vetted well for being able to be college appropriate level material. So that should give you a little confidence with that. All right. Anybody, that's to the end, and I'm out of things to talk about. If anybody has any questions for Beth, I know she's a wealth of information because she's been just going through the process all the way along. See, I think, I covered the math map or the flashcard question. That was the only question I really had in the chat. But if anybody wants to unmute and ask a question, I'll just kind of remind everybody of what the coupon code was, and remember the new product sale that includes your fallacy book will be on sale starting April 7th. So keep in mind when you're strategizing. And then as a reminder, this call is being recorded. So when it comes out, encourage your classmates, your students, classmates, parents to watch this as well so that everyone's on the same page. Again, that's referring to the new product blitz, and make sure that you're registered for Parent Practicum. We expect to see you there. So if nobody has any questions for Beth, so Hannah's typing something. So,
Hey, Krista.
yes.
Hey, yes, sorry. I can't send messages because I think there's just something wrong with my thing.
Oh, that's
so,
okay. That's fine.
So that's why I never went in. But I feel like so far I don't have a ton of questions, but I think I'll have a lot more questions as I dive into the curriculum and think through things. So I guess a question with that is there a way to contact even more than just one Challenge B? You know, I mean, I know some people at our campus that have tutored Challenge B before. And so just knowing that I'm going into tutoring Challenge B, is there a way to get connected with other Challenge B tutors who have actually tutored the class and not just gone through it as a parent?
So Beth, you can probably speak to this a bit. So I know there's the CC, CC has their own Challenge B forums. And then there's the Facebook page. What do you like to use?
So I don't know if the Facebook page is encouraged officially by CC, but that's very helpful for me because it's people that have done it not just this year, but in years past. So they're giving on their wisdom. There is a band app. Every level of CC has its own band page. And so a lot of questions that you might find on the Facebook forum, you'll find on the band app. You know, how do you do an Annie chart for Artie's Manifesto? Where are you getting your short story books published? You know, what do you guys have any ideas for math games for week 17? So that's really helpful because people are so generous with their answers, with their experiences. And then, yeah, CC Forum also has its own page. So those are the big three.
Okay, great. Thank you. So if I log into Band, do I have to have someone send me that request, or am I able to just research it and find it? And same thing for Facebook. Is it a group that you have to be let in?
Yes, Facebook definitely. I'm trying to
Okay.
remember about Band.
So the Facebook one, you basically say your community and I think your LR or something. They might change it to LCD or something. But then additionally, I think it would, while she's looking for that, I think there's a lot of tutors that have been saying, oh, I wish we could get together like we used to during 3-day practicums. And so I know there's a number of people talking about doing area-wide like get-togethers or like coffee, get coffee together, like everybody in Louisville, like in a radius around Louisville, get together for coffee as Challenge B directors. I know there's already an essentials group that's talking about doing that for coffee. That they were at the pop-up bookshop, that they're already starting to arrange that for next year. So that could very easily be something. And if I don't know, Beth, if you wanted to be willing to like pop in and be like, I'll tell you from last year. But it seems like that would be something. And if anybody wants to organize something like that and you reach out to me, I can put it on the newsletter like, hey, there's going to be a Louisville meetup, or there's going to be a Owensboro meetup for Challenge B directors or something like that. I'd be happy to put that on the newsletter or the Facebook page, like our Instagram or Facebook pages. So
Okay,
if you
awesome.
and stuff. For Hannah, you had asked about the transcript services. That's in CC Connected. So this is the slide where I should get rid of that red circle. It's very distracting. But if you look along the sidebar, instead of clicking on Learning Center, if you go down a little bit, it says transcripts. And if you click on that, it's actually a pretty easy process. Now it is more made for high school, but I think it might still work for Challenge B to be able to do that. So, all right.
I do see that. There's just nothing there. So I was curious as to how you actually went through
Are you
doing
enrolled?
it.
Are you fully enrolled?
Yeah, I've got a daughter that's in Challenge 1 next year. So
let me
I was looking into that, and it shows you transcript information where you have to put in their name and stuff, but I was hoping that it would do a lot more.
Okay, so first
it looks like you have to fill in all the summaries and all the classes and everything.
No, you shouldn't have to. It should fill in for you, like when you select, and maybe I should do a tutorial because I've had a couple people ask about that. You should be able to, you just hit the drop down menu, and then you will populate the table using those little plus signs, but maybe I should do a full tutorial. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording just so that, because this is going to get crazy long.